This is what I hear a lot. Yes, Janka, but I'm not a personal brand. I'm not into that. And for many people, that is indeed the case. But others don't even realize it. For me, my guest today, Jan Verlinde, belongs to the latter category. Jan is CEO of lemonade brand Ritchie. And in his own words, making Ritchie great again is his only goal. But because of the way he does that, he's also building his personal brand. That's what I think. And in my conversation, I try to find out what he thinks about that. Welcome to the Own Your Story podcast, the place to learn about personality branding, thought leadership, and how to capitalize your reputation. In other words, how to own your story. I'm your host, Janka Vlerakers, former actress turned into six-figure entrepreneur, author, and keynote speaker. Let's get started. Hi, Jan. Welcome.
Thank you.
We had this intake call a couple of weeks ago when I invited you to join me as my guest in this podcast. And the first thing you said to me after my invitation, you said, Janka, I think you are mistaken. I'm not a personal brand. So how do you describe yourself?
Well, I describe myself as the chief lemonade maker of Ritchie. For those who know what I do, is I decided to relaunch my favorite soft drink from when I was a young child. So everything I do from morning till evening is to try to get that brand as successful as possible on the market, so that I can live my dream and create my own company by actually bringing my favorite soft drink from my youth back on the market.
So what frightens you in saying you are in the process of personal branding as well?
Well, the point is, of course, my number one brand is my soft drink brand.
That's your company brand.
It's a company brand, that is correct. I do realize that in order to get that brand as sufficient and as cheap as possible onto the market, from time to time, I have to come out as a person myself. So therefore, by definition, as a byproduct, you end up, in my case, with a personal brand. Since that personal brand is there to support the big brand, in fact, soon to be big brand, I have to be, of course, very careful and think about how I come out, because how I come out reflects a little bit potentially on how the brand is perceived.
Well, that's exactly why I said you are a personal brand, whether you want it or not. And that the reason for that is that as a CEO, you are very, very visible. And you are what I call in my book, you are chief brand ambassador. So you call yourself a chief lemonade maker. I call you a chief brand ambassador. So not many CEOs are that. And in my opinion, they should be. They even don't dare to take that role on to become the chief brand ambassador. But in your case, it's normal. It's what you should do as a CEO for everyone, every CEO.
Well, it's the thing is, if you go back a little bit about how I want to build my brand, I want to build my brand by creating stories. Because stories is something that are easy to remember. And if the story is interesting, people will tell that story to other people. That helps. It's very, very difficult to have stories which are only brand stories. I mean, I already explained, I decided to relaunch this soft drink from when I was a little boy, a soft drink which was made in the brewery of my father. It's a very, very simple concept, an interesting story, but by definition, a little bit of my story is linked to the story of the brand.
Yeah.
And that is why in my personal branding, I try to bring some of these stories to life, because they will reflect on the overall bigger goal.
Well, that is just one story, and it's a fabulous story because it's your past, it's your youth, it's the story of another era, of another way of living, of lemonade, which has some nostalgia in it. But you have a narrative of stories, so you don't have this one story, the origin story of Ritchie, but you also have your story as a marketeer at PepsiCo. And for me, that is an interesting combination that really creates this narrative. This person, you, starting out working with PepsiCo, the big boys, and one day you say, "Nope, I'm leaving this country, this company," and you're starting your own. So tell me more about that switch. Tell me more about your life during the PepsiCo career and what happened and how that changed and etc.
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is. I mean, the first embryonic story is the one I tell from now. And what I've learned, before I'm going to answer your question in detail, what I've learned is that when people are interested in stories of other people,
Hmm.
so that's why I did enhance my story of little child's favorite soft drink bringing back on the market. I tried to bring some other stories. I mean, and to answer your question on the PepsiCo stories, um, all my when from when I was a young child, I always wanted to be a marketeer. I love marketing. I think it's a great profession, and I still remember that when I was a child, well, a little bit older than, by the age of 18. Um, that was a period where Coca-Cola was pushed into changing its formula. Everybody knows probably that story is a very well-known marketing story. And there was a book written by Roger Enrico, which was the head of marketing for PepsiCo at that point in time, was how Pepsi won the cola war. Something like that. That was the
Hmm.
title. So therefore, I was always a bit intrigued with companies like Pepsi. And a couple of years ago, I had the chance to be marketing director at PepsiCo, where I had a really lovely time at the beginning of the career. But towards the end, I started to realize more and more that in those big companies, you are, even if you have a senior role, you still have only a very small role. And I was a bit fed up with always having to ask permission, because in those big companies, you might have great ideas, but there's always someone who can say no. Um, and I've worked in other big companies before. And at the age of 45, 46, I said, you know what? I cannot do this for another 20 years.
Hmm.
I cannot be in a situation where I always have to ask permission. I want to do something on my own. Now, it's very, very easy to know what you don't want. I didn't want to stay in the big companies anymore. It's not so easy to know what you do want.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, in my quest to find inspiration, I was one day at my parents' home, and by accident I took the photo album from when I was a child. Now, my generation, we don't have thousands of pictures. You have like one photo album,
Yes.
which starts from your birth till you're like 16,
And
and
then
your
it
whole
stops.
life
Yeah.
is in 20 pages,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
Um, one of those pictures was me as a small child between some crates of Ritchie, and that's where um, the little seed was planted in my head. It's like, hey, maybe it's not a bad idea to bring the soft drink of my youth back onto the market. Now, working at PepsiCo at that point in time, or at any other marketing company, if you would see that there's actually a revival of natural Belgian local artisanal brands. You see that in every category in the world of beers. You've been seeing that for 20 years. There's even a few brothers in Wallonia who decided to, they're potato farmers. And instead of delivering the potatoes to the big chips manufacturers, they decided, hey, let's make our own crisps chips
Hmm.
from our own potatoes. Very interesting story. So I knew from my period as a marketeer that there is, on one hand, a, a market for local, natural, artisanal, more quality, better for you, however you want to call it, products. Secondly, from within my background, I had actually a raw diamond, which was Ritchie, a small brand which has a great name, beautiful packaging, wonderful
Hmm.
logo, everything, but disappeared end of the 70s. And then thirdly, I'm a marketeer. I've been working for 25 years for big marketing companies. If after 25 years you still don't know how to do it, then probably you'll never know how to do it. So I think I knew a little bit how to do marketing. And then those three things nicely came together and said, well, you know what? maybe it's not a bad idea. It was first a little seed planted in my head, but every time I had to go to an international meeting and I was sitting on the plane to Barcelona for PepsiCo, the whole flight was this idea going through my mind. And so slowly but surely, I decided to build a business case. And then, yeah, then at a certain point in time, it's do you jump
Yeah.
or don't you jump?
And didn't people say it was a kind of rebellious thing to do, and you were troubled with a midlife crisis to start something like that? I don't know. I'm just imagining the comments
Better
and
that than on
reactions of
Harley
people.
Davidson. No?
Yeah, it is. It is. Did you get a lot of comments on your idea?
Sorry, did I get what?
Did you get a lot of criticism on your idea?
Well, a lot of people thought I was crazy because it is not easy to put a brand to launch a brand to start with. It is probably not easy to do it in the soft drink market, a market which is dominated by some of the strongest brands in the world. I mean, Coca-Cola is still a top 5 brand. Pepsi is a top 10 brand of all brands that exist. Um, I had no money. I had a brand and I had a goal and an idea and an ambition, but not much money. I just had what they call in Dutch this beautiful word. I had hoesting.
Yes.
Um,
The untranslatable
and
word.
the untranslatable word indeed. And I think hoesting is what you need if you want to start a
Yeah.
company. So yes, I had the hoesting, and a lot of people saw that. But a lot of people, and I don't think it was meant in a bad way, but some chances are pretty small. You have still 3 kids which are relatively young, have to go through university. Is it clever? Because you go from a very comfortable salary to a
Yeah.
jump of the unknown. So yes, that was something I personally also struggled with for a while. But on the other hand, one day I said, okay, I don't want to be sitting in a chair when I'm 67, reflecting back on stuff I did, and say, well, I wish I had tried. So
Yeah. So you brought back alive the brand of your father. Is it exactly the same as it used to be? The same logo, the same visuals, the same taste, the same ingredients? Is it exactly the same, or did you change something?
there is a lot of stuff that is the same. It's actually, you could call it Ritchie 2.0. So the logo is the same. The shape of the bottle is the same. The shape of the label is the same. The way the lemonade is made, i.e., with better quality ingredients, higher juice content, that is still the same. But there's a few things which have changed because okay, we moved on 40, 50 years later. Um, in the 50s and 60s, there was much more sugar in soft drinks than today is acceptable.
Yeah.
So I reduced the level of sugar to make it still a enjoyable product, but more suited for today. It is not a low calorie drink. It's an indulgence. It's a little treat for yourself. But I reduce the levels of sugar. Now, if you reduce the level of sugar in a soft drink, you run the risk that it becomes a little bit less tasty. So we replaced then the sugar with cane sugar because cane sugar gives a little bit extra flavor. And then I did a few tricks, you could call. In the orange, I add a very slight little amount of vanilla. It's hardly noticeable, but the vanilla gives the illusion of sweetness without
Yeah.
losing the freshness of a
Yeah.
of a soft drink.
Wow.
So therefore, it's a little bit sweeter than it
Yeah.
would have been without the vanilla, but it's still lower calorie and very refreshing.
Yeah. During my research, I found out you told in an interview that it was very common for breweries to have beer and lemonade. Why is that combination? Was that commonly
Well,
used?
if if you go back to the 50s and 60s, um, there were no highways. You should look at pictures of the lorries of that time. Palletization did not exist. So when I was a child, when we were loading up the truck to go and deliver at one of our customers, everybody came and by hand, crate by crate, the truck was loaded, and then by hand, the crates were unloaded. That's how it started. So because of the absence of highways and most of the ways were cobblestones at that point in time, the absence of decent trucks, the absence of half trucks and all of that, in soft drinks, which and beer, which were relatively heavy type of products, they were not distributed very wide. They were predominantly consumed around the
Locally,
church, so
yeah,
to speak,
yeah,
very local. So every village had one, two, three breweries. Cities had 10, 15 breweries. And that was because there was no transport. It was all very, very local. And,
yeah,
and the machines you need to fill up bottles with beer, you can use the same machines to fill up bottles
yeah,
with water or soft.
yeah.
And that is why every small brewery, most of the time, also had a local soft drink.
It was a very
We had hundreds
practical,
of them.
yeah, yeah. And there are a lot of them disappeared, but it's. I have the feeling that they are coming back. Not as many as it used to be, but it's coming back again to enjoy that local um, stuff, products, etc. But you already said that earlier on.
It is coming back predominantly in beers. In soft drinks, there's not that many
Oh
for the
yeah,
moment.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's because of two reasons. The first reason is margins of beer are much higher and much more interesting. So therefore, with a smaller volume, you can make it into a viable business. And secondly, beer is much more sexy than lemonade. So I guess more people
still,
fall in love with the
it still is.
the the act of brewing probably is more sexy in beer than it is in
Yeah,
soft drinks. I disagree, but I think the general public would.
yeah.
You haven't found four friends who decided to create their own soft drinks. You can find a lot of four friends who created their own beers.
In one of my chapters in my book, I talk about perception and how it works. The funny thing is that you call yourself the chief lemonade maker, but when reading the articles and the interviews you gave for the press, they all say you are the CEO of Ritchie. But in reality, and that is one of the things you wanted me to know up front, is that you are mostly working alone in Ritchie. You are the man who does it all. You don't have 20 employees. But people do call you a CEO. Is that because of the combination of lemonade and it's like you have you have your own company and it's all perception? Why is that?
I think people believe that, which is true, that the person who's running the company should be called CEO.
Yeah,
I
but you're a
personally don't like.
solopreneur. In fact, in real life, you're a solopreneur. You
Well,
don't have
well, I'm
any
not. I mean,
employees.
my cousin helps. Today we are three. So it's my cousin,
Yeah,
um, a new employee, and myself. So there's
yeah.
three of us. Which again, it doesn't make sense to call yourself CEO. I remember, um, I I started the company and I was part of started KBC. You probably know, and I did sit there with other startup companies, and some people call them. I'm CEO and founder of company
Hmm.
ABC. Sitting there like, man, what are you talking about? You're CEO and founder. There's three of you. Why are you even? I mean, what's the? So therefore, when it had to, I need to have a title to put on
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
business card. So I don't
Hmm.
want to put CEO there. So we'll call it Chief Lemonade Maker,
Hmm.
which you don't have to take yourself too seriously, and that's
Hmm.
the advantage of setting up your own company. You do it for yourself, and I noticed it's a very great icebreaker.
It is. It's a
People
great
find it
name as well.
funny
It's a
name.
great title. Everybody
Yes.
exactly knows what you're doing, and there's some humor in it as well. So you say you don't have to take yourself too seriously. Is that why I see this cartoon hanging behind you on the wall?
Yeah, correct. I mean, we are all people. I mean, fun, humor is should be part of our lives, and those who take themselves extremely seriously, that's not my. Those are not the type of people I like to hang around with. So
Hmm. Hmm. Can you
keep our
tell me a
feet
bit?
on the ground.
Yeah. Can you tell me about bit more about the cartoon that's hanging behind you?
Well, the cartoon, I'll show you a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see it.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
cartoon is
Yeah.
for those who recognize it. It's actually an original Jerome cartoon. As you know, I worked at PepsiCo, and PepsiCo does every 2 years. There's a worldwide campaign for the brand Pepsi using football players. Um, Messi is one of those famous football players who's being used. Now, while I was marketing director in Belgium with the team, we set up, okay, why wouldn't we complement that number of global football stars with a big Belgian football star? So we made a deal with Vincent Company to be part of that campaign, and Vincent Company was at that point in time part of the campaign for Pepsi in Belgium. Now, some of you might know Vincent Company did not do that to put money in his own pocket. Vincent Company has got a charity which is called Brussels X. It's a charity where he supports or sets up football schools for kids in Brussels who don't have much time or possibilities to explore themselves in their free time. So the money of the campaign with PepsiCo went to Brussels X, and to support Brussels X, he organized a benefit evening with dinner. And since we were sponsor of Vans and Company with the company, we decided with the company to take a table for the dinner. And as is common in some of those charity events, there are things which are sold by bidding. And one of the elements which was sold that night was a cartoon made by Jerome, and you would be part of the cartoon. So it would be a cartoon
Yeah.
about yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I do like comics. As a good Belgian, I was raised with comic books. I love comic books. I'm a big fan of Jerome and Jerome's humor. So I thought, this is actually a great thing. Maybe I should bid for this. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Long story short, I bid for it and I won it. Okay, I
How
was
much
still
did you
working at
pay?
Pepsi.
Sorry, how much did you pay?
I think 1,800 euros.
Okay.
That's not that important. It was just now then I had to sit together with Jerome and say, okay, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to tell something about
Yeah.
yourselves? And you know what? I think it would be really cool if you could have a cartoon about Ritchie. This is my dream. This is what I'm planning on doing. So he made a cartoon of me and Ritchie. It's very funny. You won't be able to see it, but soon. Well, I'll give you a primeur. I'm in the process of writing a book about the Ritchie story. That book will come out probably beginning of next year. And I just 10 minutes ago got confirmation from Jerome that it was okay to use that cartoon. So for those who
Oh,
really want to see the cartoon, they have to wait till March, April, or whatever,
yeah.
buy the book, and there will be the cartoon.
Yeah, congratulations. It's a big step to write a book, even though maybe, are you going to write it yourself or going to use the help of a ghostwriter?
Use the help of a ghostwriter. I am not a writer. I'm a chief lemonade maker.
Yeah, but you're a marketer as well, so you should be able to
I'm a
write.
marketer, but I'm not a writer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but that's not a problem. Are you planning to get interviews and let the ghostwriter help you talk all the way through the book and figure it out that way by interviewing, by asking questions, or do you already have a
Actually, the
plan?
book is almost finished already. The book
Oh,
end of September will be fully finished.
yeah,
Therefore, we were discussing yesterday with the publishing company a launch date, so it will be probably
yeah,
February.
yeah, yeah. That's the
No,
advantage of working with a ghostwriter. It goes faster than when you write yourself. I think I have the impression.
Definitely, and also it's very nicely written. A lot of people have already read it, and the nice thing is it's not just me who's participating. The proceeds of the book, I'm not doing the book to make money. As I said, I'm a chief lemonade maker. That's my business. The proceeds of the book will go for 100% to a scholarship fund of the Verlinden. And therefore, some professors of the Verlinden are contributing as well. So
Yeah,
I hope it will be interesting.
yeah. I think it will. One of my things I, yeah, ideas on personal branding is that most of the people see personal branding as a marketing tool, as a marketing strategy. But for me, in the long run, it is also, for me, it's even more important about building legacy, about creating this oeuvre of the things you've been doing during your life, and to create something with it that could build legacy that you can give to others. And I was wondering how you think about that idea of a legacy and using your story as part of that legacy. And I came upon this interview with the TED, and you said, I want to be
Mhm.
an example for people to become adventurous.
Mhm.
So is that what you want your legacy to be? Your story of the becoming of Ritchie, the revival of Ritchie, you talking about it, inspiring other people, startup founders, etc., to be adventurous and follow their passion or ideas or dreams or whatever.
I think legacy is a big word. I do not
Yeah,
have the ambition to leave a legacy. I'm just a simple chief lemonade
but
maker.
that is such a Flemish answer. You can't believe it.
Well, if people call it a legacy, that's fine. If the only thing I achieve is giving people inspiration, say, hey, because let's put it this way. I was 47 when I decided to give up my golden cage and to say, hey, I go for my dream. A lot of people say 40. When I was younger, people say, well, if by 40 you haven't landed your final company where you're going to work till you're retired, you're never going to be able to find a job again. At 47, you are only in the middle of your career. I mean, I started somewhere when I was 20, and because of the latest legislation, we have to work till 67. So at
Mm-hmm.
47, more or less in the middle. Well, if you're going to have another 20 years of your life ahead of you, you might just as well do something you enjoy. What I do see around me is that there's lots of people who are in the same age category and who are struggling. It's like, actually, I don't really like my job, but I don't think it's an option to do something crazy and start your own company. Well, we are in 2023. You can reinvent yourself a few times if you want to in your
Mm-hmm.
lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the only thing which I achieve, some people say, well, even that crazy guy at 47
Mm-hmm.
with a big fat salary decided to live his dream and enjoy himself
Yeah.
professionally. If that is what you then call the legacy, then okay, then I'll take that as a legacy. But it's more
Yeah.
like it's an inspiration of the moment.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We have come to the end of our conversation, and there's just one thing I'm going to ask from you, and that
Mm-hmm.
is to make a choice. I want to wish you the best of luck in the rest of your career and your adventures with Ritchie, but I want to do it my way, and that's the way I was taught as an actor. Because when actors
Mm-hmm.
get on stage, before they get on stage, they wish each other good luck, but in an unconventional way. So we
Yeah.
say the other thing, the opposite, instead of good luck. We
Mm-hmm.
say, and now you have to choose between one of these three options. We can say break a leg to each other, or we can say dikke merde, that's the French swear word, or we say
Mm-hmm.
toi toi toi. Which one can I say to you to wish you all the best? Break a leg,
I think
merde, or toi toi toi?
I think toy toy toy
Why?
because it's enjoyable. Because toy toy, it sounds nice, it's enjoyable. Uh, it doesn't mean much, but it's a positive vibe. I think positive vibes are very important.
It is a Yiddish incantation, so it must mean something, but I don't know what exactly. So you choose
No
toi
idea.
toi toi. It sounds a bit like a cartoon.
Correct.
It could be a sound in a cartoon, toi toi toi. And that's how we're going to end our conversation. Thank you for being my guest here in On Your Story podcast. Thank you.
My
All the
pleasure.
best. Toi toi toi.